I'm here at the Wallace collection in London, and I'm very excited that I'm able to record here. It allowed me to actually come in after closing, and we're going to be able to take a good look at some of the arms and armor here. And there's some very interesting things. Also, it's a gorgeous museum. If you have the chance to go if you're in the area, or even if not, it might be worth to go here just for that. And if we're talking about intricate detail, this rapier right there definitely fits the bill. Some very delicate metal work on the guard, and in fact, the pommel almost looks hollow. I don't think it is, it's just blackened. That is just beautiful. There we have a longsword in a very similar style. It has additional rings as well. So I suppose people notice that hand hits while fighting with a longsword are not terribly uncommon, which is not a problem if you're wearing gauntlets, but otherwise, and a little bit of extra protection definitely comes in handy. This armor here is absolutely gorgeous. Hopefully the camera will pick that up properly. I'll try to show you from different angles. So that is actually gold. It has, in person, it has more of an antique brass look, I would say. But either way, it's absolutely amazing work on this. And you can see that up there is the lance rest. You could spend a lot of time just chasing all the details on that. That must have taken a long time. Very impressive craftsmanship. Speaking of impressive craftsmanship, I mean, that's going to be the running theme here, of course, but this also in particular, that is obviously a lot of work. There was another one that I saw just earlier that we'll get to, I'm sure, where you could actually see the tang through the grip. It almost seems wasteful to decorate a helmet so heavily that it's supposed to be used in tournaments. You know, that's definitely going to be scratched up and damaged potentially. But of course, if you're a rich, influential person, that doesn't matter too much. The opulence is what it's all about. Yeah, so speaking of use in tournaments, this one actually has signs of use. You can see 3 lines where an edged weapon has struck it. So that is exactly what happened. It also gives you an idea of just how sturdy it is. That must be pretty thick metal. I mean, generally, tournament armor was made a lot thicker because, well, for one, you're on horseback, you can always carry a little bit more weight that way, and also, you might not want to get fatally injured in a tournament. That's generally not the point. Bruises, maybe a couple of broken bones, but nothing more serious, ideally. I'll also give you a view of this Gothic mounted knight. This is from about 1480. That's, I would argue, probably the most popular form of armor generally. It's very iconic, and a lot of people like it for good reason. It's very well fitted overall. They tend to be fitted a little more tightly than later armor. Well, it depends. Some later armor also has a rather narrow waist, but you know, the late medieval ideal was pretty much this. Wide shoulders and a very narrow waist, and the armor reflects that. And like I've talked about in that one video about what knights looked like and how they were built, how they were not hulking bodybuilders, this is another case that illustrates that. You know, obviously they were strong and athletic, but really not bulky as such. Quite a beautiful Italian falchion. You have a shell guard on one side. It's turned upwards. Often they're the other way around. It's an interesting grind as well. From the center up and down, you can see the hollow grind there, and then there's a secondary bevel at the base. And the back edge is sharpened as well, toward the point. It's just a general feature of hunting swords. They're made with prestige in mind. And so a lot of things you see on a hunting sword, you shouldn't assume that it's for functional reasons. It's quite often simply to show off. Not that they were dysfunctional, obviously, but they were designed to be used against animals. You have these scales on the handle. The proportions and the sizing, quite appealing. There's something very graceful about it. And these are all gorgeous, really. That is definitely one of the prettiest flanged maces you would see. That's quite a remarkable shamshir up there. The blade, it has a little bit of a bluish tint to it. And it's quite a nice matte finish on it. If you look at the edge, or the way the blade is shaped overall, that's what so many manufacturers get wrong when they reproduce blades. Because quite often they just slap on a pretty steep secondary bevel and that's it. But you can see here is a much more gradual transition. And this, as you can guess by the way it's displayed, is quite an exceptional dagger. Belonged to Prince Kuram, if I pronounce that halfway correctly. Yeah, this is spectacular, I think is the right word. That will definitely activate your magpie brain right there. Oh, the shinies. Gold and gems and just such filigrane work. I mean, it would take a lot of patience and a steady hand. You would think this could just be a showpiece, right? This is just something that he carries around, wall hanger essentially. But even so, it does have that reinforced armor-piercing tip right there. You know, armor-piercing is what they're often called. It's not always necessarily that in particular. It's just, you know, against hard targets, essentially. You know, because if you have a very particularly thin blade or a narrow point, it can break off even on bone. So there's a hooded katar, which I've always liked. I wonder if there had been some unfortunate incidents where someone got their hand hit and eventually they decided, hey, why not put an additional guard on there? I don't know too much about that other than supposedly they were used for tiger hunting, in which case, you know, it's debatable how much you need that guard. But at the same time, a claw swipe to the back of your hand would definitely not be pleasant. So it does not seem like a bad idea. Okay, that is also quite a spectacular piece right there. The handle on that katar. It's got everything, basically. It's got gems and it's gilded. Enamel too, I believe. Velvet covered sheath. More enamel there. That in particular is really nice. I love the spiral look and always the contrast between blackened parts and either gilded or silver. And that is also something that I haven't seen before necessarily. So you have a very narrow fuller right there that goes all the way to the end. You know, quite often a fuller ends way before the tip, but this one goes all the way through. Again, not a blood groove, just to reiterate. You should know that already. There's a lot more that I would have loved to show you in greater detail, but there was a time limit, of course, to work with. And speaking of time, I've also put up an hour-long edit of my visit there available for patrons and YouTube members, which has quite a bit more footage for people with a longer attention span, while I'm using shorter segments for separate videos on my channel. You have to be strategic about that these days. So if you're interested in that and want to support the channel, check out the link in the description below. And of course, the guns. They decorated just as much as the swords and other weapons. Plenty of inlays that looks like mother of pearl, probably ivory or bone, could be walnut, gilded as well. Details for ages. Oh, quite literally, I suppose. This, if I remember correctly, is a puffer pistol with this large spherical pommel, I suppose, at the end, which I think were intended for striking as well. If you grip it by the barrel. These are stone bows. So rather than shooting a bolt or arrow, you would shoot lead balls or stones. These were used for bird hunting. You can see right there the pouch that it would go into. These are, of course, also heavily ornamented because it is an aristocratic pastimes, and of course, aristocrats always love to show off. There's a good look at the rapier hilt here from this angle. There are some stiletto daggers. This one is particularly filigreed. And decorated mace as well. Essentially, anything you could decorate, they did, which is fantastic. Again, unless you like it more utilitarian, but where's the fun in that? You could spend easily 5 minutes or more per piece and just keep looking, which is exactly what I would recommend. If you have a chance to go to the Wallace collection, do exactly that. Just, take a lot of time and really look at them. Just really stand there and just take in all the detail, because there's just so much to see. These are pieces of art. This is all high status, prestige objects. So your average mercenary or regular day Joe Schmo would not be able to afford this, of course. And it's not, these are functional, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of focus on making everything extravagant and lavish for the social elites. So this is the finest you'll see, and absolutely it is extremely fine work with the modern eye. Just the expectation of perfect symmetry, machine made, etc., etc. It might stick out to you that, for example, the one quillon is just, it's not perfectly in line with the other. It's just a little bit uneven, not perfectly straight. But even knowing that, there are a lot of pieces here that are very much quite symmetrical and just made with a lot of precision and just with an astonishing amount of attention to detail. I'm just gushing because I like it that much, genuinely. I feel very privileged that I was allowed to film here, particularly after closing. This is amazing. I'm very grateful to have had that opportunity. So check it out. Link will be down below, of course. Let me know what you think. And thanks for watching. Oh, spooky. I've been walking the streets of London after dark. Have I been stabbed yet? Yes, 35 times. But that's okay, because I know how to harden my skin and shift my internal organs to avoid the blade. No, it's been fine.